Hello everybody, another installment today in my series of JDM cars. Now this one is actually a genuine JDM vehicle. I appreciate that many of the cars I featured in the series have simply just been Japanese cars rather than strictly JDM, but let's just ignore that, shall we? This is a Toyota Alphard G. Now the Alphard is a bit of an oddity. I suppose the nearest equivalent that we have in Europe would be something like the Volkswagen Transporter. It's a bit bigger than your average minivan, and it really is more or less a van with seats in. In Japan, some of the Alphards are seen as a fairly luxurious car, and having seen in the back of some of them, I can see why. If you don't believe me, just Google Toyota Alphard Royal Lounge. They are pretty amazing. They're basically airline, like first class airline seats in the back of a van. It's not that they don't have the S-Class or the 7 Series or anything like that over there, but these are just such versatile vehicles in a country where you don't have the space to have huge fleets. I can see why you would want one, and in fact, even for myself in this country, there's a lot to be said for them. For a start, basically anything you want to do with a vehicle, you can do with this. Do you need to take loads of stuff to the local dump? Yep. Fold the seats up or just take them out, and you can chuck loads of stuff in the back just like it's a van. Want to take people out? Well, you've got 5 proper sized seats back there. You just want to drive somewhere? Well, it's actually pretty nice to drive. Now, this one has the 3-litre Toyota V6. There are 3 generations of Alphard, of which this is the first. Now, each of them have their own quirks and features and so on and so forth, but I'm not that kind of channel.
The Alphard, unlike some of its rivals, has always been powered by either petrol or hybrid engines. That was probably one reason most people in Europe were uninterested in them, as in the mid-2000s we saw diesel become the fuel of choice for most buyers in this segment. A decade on though, and Toyota's decision seems to have been a very sensible one.
This engine is absolutely buttery smooth, and as you might expect, it's connected to a 5-speed automatic gearbox. Later cars had a slightly better 6-speed auto, but you know what? For just bimbling around, this is absolutely fine. Fuel economy is in the mid to upper 20s, which is honestly exactly where I would expect it to be. No, it's not the most efficient vehicle ever, but the trade-off is the fact that it's just probably never going to break. These engines are ridiculously robust, and for a 15-year-old vehicle, this thing feels very, very solid. The sole rattle in here is my camera, and as you would hope, this thing gives you a very commanding view of the road. There are a few cool little features in this particular car that do point out the fact that it is very much a Japanese market car. They include the Japanese electronic toll tag thing down here, the original roadside flare over there, and one of my favourite features, although I suspect obviously not a JDM specific one, is the weird third mirror over there. I suppose that's designed to help you park, although honestly, it seems a little bit useless. I guess if it's all super cleaned up and highly polished, maybe it'd work, but on a gritty, grimy English day, it's doing nothing. I think it helps you see the very front of the vehicle and also the side there for parking. It's a cool idea, but I suppose just the best they could do when they didn't really want to put cameras on everything. Speaking of cameras, I can see the fact that my camera at the back is now being utterly and totally coated in water, so I hope you've enjoyed looking out of that one, because that I think is now utterly done. There's loads of room in the back of this thing, and if you have kids like this car's owner does, I can see why it would appeal. It's pretty comfy, and the little ones in the back will have a selection of things to keep them entertained. This has a little fold-down TV screen, and some of the more modern ones that I've looked at actually have massive, great big TVs hidden in the back, and what in some of them look a bit like a drinks cabinet. I suspect that's probably not for the kids, that's more for your Japanese executive. That being said, this thing's actually very enjoyable to drive. I do really miss large multi-cylinder petrol engines because there's just something so right about them in a luxury vehicle. This is all the engine you would ever need. Routine maintenance is not going to be particularly expensive, and although if you do have a problem with one of these, you'll obviously need to ship certain parts from Japan, but they seem to have a real following over here. I've seen the owners clubs of the Alphard and they're quite dedicated people, and you know what? I kinda get it. Some Japanese cars I drive and they're just things that people I think buy because they're weird, because they're Japanese, because they're quirky, and it's very hard to make any sort of logical justification for them. I mean, that's fine. I'm not the person to ask about buying a car for purely logical reasons. However, with the Alphard, you certainly can make a sensible argument for it. You see, this car's European rival, the Volkswagen sort of T5 really for this era of car, is ruddy expensive. I mean, really seriously pricey. They do camper van versions of these, and I saw some on eBay for about 15 grand. Now that might sound like a lot of money, but if you know the camper market, it isn't. A brand new Volkswagen California, or whatever they want to call it, is a lot of money. I mean, like 60, 70,000 pounds, a huge sum. And let's be perfectly honest here, are you that fussed about your people carrier camper van thing being just a little bit quicker or better like that? I don't know about you, but I'm not. When it comes to a vehicle like this, I'm just concerned about practicality, reliability, and just, well, features. And this has all the features that you would need. Kids don't really know the difference between 27 and 30 to the gallon. They really, really don't. So I would say save the money, buy a petrol one of these, and just enjoy it. There's quite a few out there to choose from, and I suppose if you don't want a Toyota for whatever reason, the next best thing would be the Nissan Elgrand. It's basically the same thing, but Nissan's take. This is a category of car which is very popular in Japan. Now, I'm not sure about this, but I'm sure somebody in the comment section will be able to inform me. But in Japan, I know they have different categories for cars. And one of the things which defines each particular category is the physical size of a vehicle. That's how the K car is measured, or one of the ways that a K car is measured. It might be that these vehicles are designed to fit in one of these categories, and the fact that they are basically a big shed on wheels is a way of making the best use of the size and space available to them. I think it's actually a pretty damn cool thing, and it's much nicer to drive than you would really give it credit for. It's actually very well refined, and when you think that it is designed ultimately as a businessman's express, I kind of get it. I also kind of like the idea that the Alphard and the Elgrand in Japan have maybe brought back the class system that Ford introduced to Britain in the 1970s. You know, you could tell whether somebody was just a sort of a lackey or the boss, depending on what the trim of their car was. They were all driving around in the same car, but just slightly different specs. So maybe in Japan, I don't know, someone looks at an Alphard and they go, that's just the Alphard G, that's just a taxi. But then maybe they look at the Alphard and they see it's an executive lounge and they go, he's middle management, he's a proper guy. And then maybe they see one with the Royal Lounge badge on the back and they go, it's the boss. Be good, be nice, wave, smile, bow, whatever you need to do. I don't know. It's just a flight of fancy. But as it happens, this is a pretty cool car. You can pick one of these up for a few £1,000s they start at, and they go, you can buy one for about 45 grand, which is going to be pretty brand spanking new, but even that is not actually silly money compared to what you might pay for the new T6 V-Dub. So there we have it, an alternative family car, which also has an excellent turning circle, by the way, for lovers of all things JDM. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please like, comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.